comments, let me explain the hearing procedure. First, as stated previously, the purpose of this hearing is to solicit your input regarding the project. As the plans are not yet complete, we may not be able to answer all of your questions or respond to all your comments at this time. Next, we ask that anyone who wishes to have his or her comments entered into the official hearing transcript, please stand up, come to the microphone, identify yourself by name and affiliation, whether or not you are an abutter, local official, or concerned citizen, and please spell your last name. This is necessary in order for us to obtain a full verbatim transcript as required by law. Also, the last sheet of your handout, as Matt mentioned, is a mail-in sheet. If you have any questions or comments which you would like to submit in writing, please use this sheet for that purpose. You can also give that sheet to anyone else who may have a comment. You may leave the sheet with me tonight, or you may mail it to the department within 10 days of this date, and it will become part of the official record. Finally, it is normal procedure to ask any elected officials to offer their comments first. Are there any federal officials, state officials, or local officials who would like to speak at this time?
Ed Abrams, A-B-R-A-H-A-M-S. I'm on the select board in Great Barrington. I'm not speaking for the select board, I'm just one member. We have some experience with the Main Street reconstruction with granite curbs that were sharp enough to slash tires. Will these be beveled or ground down, or is it too soon to know that?
So the intent would not be for vehicle path to get close to the curbing in this location. We've run turning templates. We know the vehicles can make it. There wasn't an intention of grinding the curb, but if the town feels that that's going to be a concern at this location, we can certainly entertain that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other officials or any other board members, other different boards or anything like that? All right, then this hearing is now open to the public, and we welcome your questions and comments. So the floor is open. Anybody else that has any questions may come up.
I've got a question for you.
All right.
Gene Selby, S-A-L-B-I.
Mrs. Selby, would you spell your first name?
Gene, G-E-N-E.
Thank you.
And I've got a question about...
Sir, if you leave the mic, I cannot hear you.
Well, I can't point at that map either.
Could probably bring it a little bit
That's
closer.
it. At what point coming in this direction or this direction does all of the traffic get forced into one lane?
Sure, so, it's, yeah, no, it worked great. Going, try to orient myself properly. So going southbound on Route 7, there's currently 2 lanes. And then right here, you can kind of see the white line. The lane drop will be from here to about here, where we will drop that 2 lanes into 1. And then we'll continue the 1 lane going southerly. Maple Ave currently just has 1 lane each direction. And then for northbound, right now the 2 lanes opens up as you approach the intersection. So we're going to keep that as 1 lane. And then we'll open up the 2 lanes just after the roundabout. Right about here, it'll start to open up at the project limits.
Now back here is a traffic light.
Yep, further down there.
So you're between this traffic light and say South Street, which runs uphill from here. You're gonna crowd 2 lanes of traffic into 1 lane of traffic with a problem at this Taconic Street traffic light. How are you gonna prevent that?
In terms of these vehicles queuing up and coming through there.
Because if you're gonna squeeze them all down to 1 lane somewhere around South Street, that means all the cars that are doubled up through this traffic light are gonna be stuck in this traffic light.
Well, the roundabout's gonna facilitate the traffic better than if they had to stop and back up at a red light. So the traffic won't be backing up as far as...
Shouldn't be backing up.
Oh, right, we've done the analysis and it shows that what the queue length is based on the traffic.
And can I ask what said a third of the accidents were rear end accidents. Others were side swipes or. The only problem I see with that intersection in the lights that are there is there's no left-hand light to send tractor trailer trucks out Maple Avenue. If there was a left-hand turn light there, the traffic coming north wouldn't have to stop for the traffic turning left onto Maple Street. So wouldn't it be logical to change the lighting as opposed to going into so much construction on that corner?
Well, adding, if I understand you correctly, adding another left turn lane
Right.
would also be widening the pavement even more than what's there.
Well, yeah,
So
but
this,
a left turn lane is gonna allow the trucks that are in these two lanes to pull left. Because the problem I see going through there, is the trucks get caught here because there's no left turn signal. So everybody coming in this direction in two lanes, and you know, people don't give up. They're gonna make that truck wait. They're on schedules and stuff. So when you're talking about rear end crashes, that's because somebody made an oops.
rear end crashes are more likely at signalized intersections.
Oh, I
Because-
realize
Because
that.
vehicles have to stop at a red light and people can stop suddenly. So that's why roundabouts typically have less rear end accidents.
And
But
I
to
know-
answer your question about the truck now, the truck isn't gonna have to wait for anybody now because he's gonna be able to.
He's
enter
gonna
the round-
squeeze into a single lane.
He's gonna be able to go through the roundabout.
Sorry, gentlemen, if you both speak at once, I can't know who's
Okay.
saying what.
I understand that you're gonna squeeze into one lane and make it round. But if you have a two lane going through and a lane to turn left, these people don't have to stop at all. That's,
Somebody will
and
have to
I
stop.
worked construction for almost 40 years, so I've been out on the road a lot. And that's why I'm asking the question, why you would want to squeeze traffic down? Why would you not want it to flow completely through and just put lights that take up the problem of the left turn lane here?
Yep. So to answer your question, and then Matt had shown a graphic, when there is a light, there's a delay or people are waiting, but without the lights, there's less delay. So that's
Oh.
why we're recommending the roundabout over the signal
But
modifications.
you've got a lot of truck traffic in this, and the trucks are what cause most problems. And when you squeeze it down into a roundabout where everyone has to get into one lane, now you're squeezing not only a car that wants to go ahead, you want the truck drivers that are under a schedule that have to move through. So, to me, there would be more of a side swipe or squeezing problem when you're trying to squeeze them down. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
No, I'll just wait. Patty Melville, Melville. Did you, what else was I supposed to do?
Affiliation.
Citizen. How's that? So I have two questions. One of them, for the safety of the police station, I'm surprised that there's nobody here from the police station. They've been there about 10 years, more than 10 years, I don't remember. But I don't recall any problems with the police going in and out of the police station. So I'm wondering if they contacted you and said that they had problems getting in and out, or if you're thinking they're having problems getting in and out of the police station, that they need their access changed. So that's one question I had. And the other one, I don't know, it may sound horrible, but it sounds like it's breaking down to 5 accidents a year that are rear enders, and I don't recall in my history any terrible accidents there. but for 5 rear enders or little side swipes a year, forgive those people who do it, is it necessary to undo everything rather than fix a street light, add another street light, put in some better pedestrian things and sidewalks? It seems like a very big project for the need of pedestrians to cross, to eliminate some rear-ended accidents, forgive me, and police whom I've never heard complain about getting in and out of their police station. So I'm just curious.
So I guess I would have to check the road safety audit attendance. I don't know.
Chief Walsh was at it.
Was he at the?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was not, but William Walsh was at that.
Okay, so they were part of the road safety audit process, so any of their concerns, I can't speak right now as to,
So you don't,
Whose
but,
concern is-
so they didn't contact you and say, we're having a terrible problem at this thing and we need help with redoing the road?
I don't know exactly what they said, but they were part of the road safety audit where all of these issues were identified, and that was one of the issues that was identified at the road safety audit. And
But
they
you
were
don't know
present,
whether
so
you
they-
guys identified it or they identified it?
I can look at the notes and say who said it. This is just a
Yeah,
compilation
I mean,
of
I-
everything.
I-
I'm sorry, folks.
Sorry.
If you interrupt each other,
Okay.
nothing gets in the transcript, so
All right.
let one finish.
I'm feeling highly suspicious as a member of a town that feels like the Main Street reconstruction was kind of shoved down our throats. And there are a lot of problems existing today in traffic movement in town because the state decided we needed to have a new town and our town agreed to it. And I feel stuck in traffic all summer. I see level pavement problems and sidewalk problems and all sorts of things that didn't exist beforehand. So I hate to fix something that doesn't seem that broken, and just wanted to say that.
So if I could reply to a couple of those comments. So with regard to who identified this intersection, I think it's safe to say that MassDOT identified this location through data as a high accident location. As a result of that, we conducted a road safety audit and invited the police chief and other safety officials and other experts to that road safety audit. So we initiated that as our data showed that there's a high crash location. That said, Chief Walsh and Fire Chief, and I'm forgetting his name at the moment.
Berger.
Thank you. Did meet with MassDOT about a month ago and reviewed the roundabout plans, and both were in agreement that the roundabout would work very well with their operations. So they have seen these plans and commented on them. And then lastly, just for the record, the Main Street project, of course, was a town designed and advocated project. So, that wasn't really a MassDOT, we constructed that, but that design was at the request of the town.
Holly Hamer, Hamer.
I'm sorry, what was your first name?
Holly, Holly.
Thank you.
I'm a citizen. I can see a lot of benefits to the proposal that you're putting forward to us. As a resident, I live out on Route 71, and so I've been going through this intersection a minimum of 2 times a day for the last 20 years. And I can tell you from that experience that there is a problem with pedestrian safety. There is a problem with the existing islands, which have just been cheaply tarred over. I don't see a problem with traffic. Of all the intersections in Great Barrington, to me, I never see more than 3 cars at any time of day that I use the intersection. But I know this is not the place to say, don't do a roundabout, because you're gonna do it. I don't think that we have any control over that, and luckily at least we won't be spending any of our own money. So in that regard, I'll try to limit my comments to things that may be useful. And what I would like to say is, this is an area that's both heavily populated by seniors and by tourists. And the roundabout requires a certain knowledge and etiquette that I don't think most of us know, simply because I don't think there are any roundabouts in Berkshire County, are there?
There's one
In Adams.
in Adams.
Okay. All right, so most of us, if we've ever experienced one, it's been on the Cape. And frankly, they're dreaded. People are scared of them. It's hard. In your little graphic, you have educated people who know when to stop, know when to go, but what's going to happen here unless there's a certain amount of education or really clear signage or both? What happens is it only works if people go when they're supposed to go and stop when they're supposed to stop. And I know with a 2-lane roundabout, it's a nightmare for a lot of people. And I can see what's going to happen here. People are going to go up to Connick and over on West and vent the entire intersection partly because it will be somewhat intimidating and confusing, and partly because of ornerariness, I think. The other thing that concerns me is you now have this, federally funded, beautiful grass center of this roundabout. And I think that there should be plans and town input as to what's going to happen there as you sell this package through the media, etc., because it's never going to look like that. It's going to be stocked full with political lawn signs and commercial lawn signs and things of that nature. So I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I just feel like, in a way, it's true that people in this town are somewhat suspicious of any road improvements because, for instance, it's difficult to adjust to change, but also because some of it is not really easy to understand. For instance, people in this town tourists alike, still have trouble merging from 2 lanes on Main Street into 1 lane. Because again, there's no signage. The markings on the road are challenging. And this just feels like it just feels like there should be very careful consideration of how drivers are going to learn how to use it. And that I would be very curious to see what the accident reports are after you've built this. What I see as a reason for accidents is that there's no speed control. The police have people running red lights in front of that building almost 2 or 3 times a week. People coming from south to north especially run that light, and there's a very short delay. So I've taught myself not to go when the light turns green, to look, and make sure. But I do think that that is a problem that may have caused this high number of accidents. That shouldn't be a problem, could be addressed in a much more simplistic way. Thank you.
Charlie Plungis, PL, UNGIS, citizen, Great Barrington. I agree with most of what's being said here, especially Mr. Salvo. When trucks are turning south and north, yes, have a directional arrow there. Trucks are about the only ones who make a left-hand turn there. The rest of us, we use one of the shortcuts, South Street or thereabouts. You've got 2 lanes going down to 1 in all directions. Right now, there are no queues there. There are very little queues. Because you have that right-hand lane going from north to south, going out to Route 23, traffic always moves, and there's very little going from north to south into Sheffield. Not enough to make bigger queues, which you will have here, because even people wanting to make a right-hand turn will be stopped from doing so. You've put in pedestrian crosswalks short of each of the entrances to the roundabout. Seems like our experience here in Great Barrington is pedestrians get hit, sometimes fatally, when there's a pedestrian walkway but there's no light. They're taking the lights out of this intersection. We've had a fatality, at least one that I can remember, here in Great Barrington, because there's no light where there's a pedestrian walkway. You've got that, you're spending $2 million for this, you take a little bit of room for the police station. I don't think you're gonna speed up traffic at all, you're talking about a 30-second wait. I would say it's not even that most of the times when you're going through that intersection. It's less than that. Yes, speed is a problem going through that intersection. People know that there's a delay on that light. So yes, people will speed to make that light, but you don't have to wait that long a time. And when you have a roundabout, people have to make a decision as to when to enter that roundabout. You say it's going to create fewer problems? I don't know. You also say that there's been 16 accidents over the past 2 years. I guess if you've got data, there must be. I can't remember 16 accidents there in the past 20 years. So they must be very minor. They don't show up on too many reports. It just seems like you're spending $2 million for something that could be repaired. Those lights are visible. They're visible from all directions at that intersection. You can see them. Now, if there's some improvements that need to be made, all right, that's a repair. You say the lanes are not marked very well, coming in all directions. Well, spend some money on paint. Put it down so you can see which you can go. Coming south to north, if you put in a left turn signal, you know you can go either straight or make a left-hand turn. You say the pedestrian lights, the button there doesn't function, repair it. Make their red lights so people can cross the street when they need to cross. It doesn't happen that often during the course of the day. It doesn't affect that much traffic. I mean, we're talking about repairs at this intersection, I think. I don't think we're talking about improvements. The only thing I will grant you is you get a bike lane, because you can't realistically put a bike lane in the way it's set up right now, especially going from north to south. But shoot, if that's the problem, $500. I'll put a sign at South Street that says bicycles exit here, detour here, you come out on West Street. They don't have to go through that intersection. It just seems to me like there's a lot being spent for very little, if any, improvement at all. Thank you.
Charlie?
Hi, Pat Salvi, S-A-L-V-I, concerned citizen. I don't wanna go over what other people have already said, but when I saw your existing issues, I made a couple of notes, and most of them seem like easy, not expensive fixes, like signage, a left turn lane in the northbound lane, going out onto West Avenue, Route 23. So signage, signals, and pavement markings just seem like a really easy thing to do. And I agree with what Charlie just said about people hesitating to get into a roundabout. But one of the things that that I noticed when you did the traffic simulation, I thought that was really fun. But you noted there that there's an 11-second traffic delay getting into that roundabout. Very interesting, and you do have those crosswalks. How do these people cross the street, even halfway across, even to those islands that you have? How does a pedestrian get across the street without a walk light? I mean, they've got 11 seconds before a car is coming at them, and then they get to stand on a concrete thing and wait another 11 seconds to, maybe dash across the road again. So I'm really concerned about the pedestrians in that intersection. I wonder if you can tell me how that's gonna work out. Thank you.
Well, the idea is to create shorter crossings, so people don't have to go across longer stretches of pavement.
Right, but
Like they would if we added a left turn lane, people would have to cross 3 lanes of traffic that's traveling northbound, and then another 1 or 2 lanes traveling southbound. So now there's 5 lanes they have to cross in order to cross the road.
correct,
All without any protection.
and there would probably be traffic
And if
lights
there's a
there.
traffic light, then that delay gets added in. So you're correct, there's not a huge congestion problem out here. The roundabout was instituted to improve on the safety of it, and one of the added benefits that we looked at is that it will make traffic better and not worse. So you're right that if a 31 some people might say 31-second delay is fine, they don't need it to be an 11-second delay. But if we add another lane, that adds to that delay. So, and these are just things to consider, and we looked at the signal option versus the roundabout. So if that's the preferred design, then it would increase the delay, and then we'd have to talk to the state, do you wanna spend money on an intersection where we're gonna make traffic
I've lived
worse?
in this town all my life, I've gone through that intersection, sometimes several times a day. And I've never found that particular intersection holds traffic up as long as, say, I live out on Alford Road, so coming down onto Conic Avenue and trying to make a left turn onto Main, that's one of the longest lights in town, is making that left turn. So to me, going through that intersection, this intersection, that's an easy one. There's hardly any delay there at all, except for left turn coming north and making that left turn.
And what initiated the project was the number of crashes, not the
Well,
congestion, so that's.
Again, as Charlie pointed out, 5 a year doesn't seem like an awful lot of.
It's not based on the number, it's based on.
And how serious were they? Were these
How
all
many
just
dead?
property damages with vehicle property damage, or were there personal injuries involved in these accidents?
Sorry, folks, please, one at a time, let her finish. You
Right,
finish.
how many personal injuries in these rear-ending accidents that are about 5 a year?
You have it in the report.
Thank you.
So there were 3 out of the 16 were identified as personal injury.
In how many years? 5 years?
I'm sorry, ma'am, stay up if you're gonna keep asking.
No, that's okay.
She asked how many years.
So that was over a
Thank you.
3-year period.
David Unger, U-N-G-E-R, and I'm a citizen. I think you're underestimating the size and quantity of trucks coming down 23 to make a left through town. I watch it virtually every day from my home on Maple. And the simulation, I don't think, did a good job of showing the trucks, the size of these trucks. There are big prefab trucks coming through, and I think that, quite frankly, my opinion, the light is good for the trucks. And going through the roundabout is not gonna be as easy for them, and gonna cause major problems, especially with the traffic coming from south to north. So I would review the truck size that are coming down 23. It's all coming off the Taconic, so, you know, a lot every day.
Yeah, and that simulation is not an exact representation of the truck this was designed for. We did design this for the very heavy trucks that are out there based on the traffic counts that we did receive to get the accurate truck volume of trucks through there.
These
Because
are
there is a
wide,
large, and they are wide.
wide and long.
Yep, so
I
we
mean,
did
I have
run
no
those-
problem,
So,
you know, I
gentlemen,
watch them.
gentlemen,
They're wide and long,
Mhm.
and I don't think the circle's gonna be, the roundabout's gonna be effective for that.
Okay, thank you.
you can just stand normally, it's fine.
Okay, my name's Thomas McClelland, McClelland, and I'm affiliated with Karen Kiskadden, which is in a butter.
Can you spell that?
It's KERIN KISKADDEN
Thank you.
LLC, which is in a butter, and we own the business on the corner. We're also a business owner in Great Barrington, a retail business. I have several points, obviously, and I'm gonna try and prioritize these. I appreciate you coming, I appreciate your attention to the safety of our community. The one thing I will say that I do object to the not being notified. I'd heard this
word of mouth today. And it was not public, put in the Berkshire Eagle or the Berkshire Record. So those are the two major ways that we would hear about this around here. Nor was I given any sort of notice by mail that there was gonna be a hearing directly impacting my property, which I think should be a pretty common practice. So having said that, I'm gonna go down a little list and say that we've been in that property for 4 years. We look out onto that intersection during all business hours, and before and after, because we work there a lot. And I've never once witnessed a traffic jam. And I want to tell you, I just got back from Los Angeles. And if you want to see a traffic jam, go to Los Angeles. There are no traffic jams at that light ever, unless the town is doing work. Then there's traffic jams. So that's one point. We have never witnessed any major accident at that corner in 4 years. We would know it. We use that. Our customers use that intersection. We use it. It's not a problem. It's not a dangerous intersection. You mentioned that it's a high crash zone, but the percentage of difference between what you call a high crash zone being 93%, 0.93%, and 0.78%, which is the state average, does not seem to warrant the kind of project, a $2 million project. It seems to warrant improving that intersection to bring that number down. If the idea is to slow traffic down coming into that intersection, there are other ways to do it. You guys probably know a lot about those ways, but a roundabout that has been stated where you're funneling traffic into a constantly moving thing with no walk lights does not really seem to improve any safety. I walk across that intersection all the time, and I use the walk lights. So obviously I have concerns as an abutter, but I also want to say that as a small business owner in this town, I can speak for a lot of the small retailers in this day and age and say that it's very, very difficult. This is a difficult climate to be a small retail business. And this town is very lucky to have excellent, excellent retailers. The impact of another big construction project in this town that has not even been, there was never any mention in your presentation about how long this is going to take, but it's not going to be overnight, is going to impact the retailers in this town negatively. No question about it. And I think that it's not right and unfair to not have full public input before you move forward one more spec in this project. I don't think it's fair. And that you've put in 25% of your engineering and all that kind of stuff, okay. But I would like to state that the small businesses that have put up with a lot in the last few years should be fully involved in this discussion. And, so that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. Kathy with a K, Plungis, Plungis, born and raised, retired teacher. I have gone through that intersection as a driver for over 50 years. You are trying to slow down traffic instead of with this. We have 2 lanes coming from Connecticut into Berkshire County. You are going to be putting that down to 1 lane before you hit this major intersection. You're going to continue to back up traffic right down to Big Y. If we're leaving Main Street, 2 lanes of traffic, you're cutting that down to 1. That second lane of traffic leaving Main Street heading south, turning right, goes into New York State. That is a major lane for us. You get in that lane, you go down it, and you're flowing right into Maple Avenue, into New York State, into Egremont. By breaking that down into 1 lane, we're gonna be backed up right to here, Main Street, Bridge Street. Totally unnecessary to do this, $2 million. Unnecessary. Reposition the lights, paint the lines. We need line painting all over the state roads here in Berkshire County. That isn't done. You are going to be slowing down the traffic. If we do have a fender bender, once you go down to 1 lane, all traffic stops. Right now, if we have a fender bender there, we've got a second lane to go around that. For myself, sitting there, and especially as I'm coming from Maple Avenue, I see a police station. By golly, I do slow down. The policemen right now have a second lane there to turn right out to head north. You're telling me you're going to be putting in 1 lane there, and there's constant traffic? That is going to slow the policemen down. You see a police car come out or even turn into there. If you're a citizen, you slow down, you stop, you let them go in and out anytime they want. This is totally unnecessary. We need those 2 lanes, especially the south to north. There's no reason to funnel them. 1 lane. You know, we do need that turning lane for the trucks. There is a massive number of trucks that go through there practically all hours of the day. And you want them to go down to 1 lane. We need that right-hand lane continuing through to the north and heading south. We need that right-hand lane that will turn right onto Maple Avenue. We have a number of nursing homes out there, also the other villages. We need the 2 lanes here. It's already bad enough once we get to Main Street and Elm Street going down to a 1 lane. We cannot have any more 1 lane roads. We need to keep the 2. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Walter McTeague, MC, TEIGUE. My business, McTeague and McClelland, is on the corner, on the northwest corner. And I pretty much agree with everything that I've heard. I don't think that there's really an issue at this intersection. In fact, having gone through it for 26 some years now, I have remarked on many occasions how well it works. And I do agree that the one on Taconic is not so great, but this one works quite well. I use it both as a driver going every which way through that intersection, as well as a pedestrian. And I am definitely concerned about having no light for pedestrians there. Excuse me. I also appreciate that your goal here is to make it safer, and I think that there are some tweaks that could be made for pretty minimal expense. And you know, there's two expenses. One is the expense to the federal government and to the state, which it seems like nobody here thinks is worthwhile. But then there's the expense to the town of putting up with construction, as well as to the businesses that just have to suffer through it. And like Tim said, you know, we're fortunate to have a vibrant retail community here in our town that has a lot of challenges these days, and to have an additional burden at the peak of our season, dealing with people that basically want to avoid town and avoid coming to shop, you know, that really hurts us. We employ 10 people full-time. You know, we're a significant part of the community here. Us, you know, Matiga McClellan, as well as the small businesses that will be affected by this, and I'm concerned about that. I noticed in the video simulation, which I thought was pretty great, it didn't show a single vehicle, northbound vehicle, making a left turn on Main Street, making a left turn onto Maple Street. And I see that as very problematic. If there's one lane and northbound traffic can't go around a truck that's not, or a car that's having trouble getting through that intersection, I think it's gonna block things up quite a bit. I will also say that we get a lot of, you know, coming in on Maple Street into Great Barrington is a large number of New Yorkers, and I'm not knocking New Yorkers, I am a former New Yorker. But we don't know about yielding to pedestrians. That's not something that's common there, and I think it's very dangerous to assume that anybody's gonna yield to pedestrians. New Yorkers don't know about that, and they have very little experience with traffic circles. So there's gonna be a big learning curve there, and I think that there's potential for a lot of problems. I also said that I noted that one of the presenters said that traffic circles can be safer. That's not very convincing. That's about it. Oh, and finally, I would just like to know if there's an estimate of how long construction would be.
Based on the duration, was within a year from NTP.
What's
A
that?
year?
Within 1 year from NTP.
What's NTP?
Notice to proceed, I'm sorry. That's just the estimate based on the 25% items.
So the actual.
I'm sorry, could you come back to the mic?
Could you let us know approximately from the beginning of the actual construction phase, how long the construction would be?
I would anticipate by saying a year after NTP that if notice to proceed was, say, April in the beginning of the season, that it could possibly be done in the same construction season. So it may not be 1 calendar year. It may be less than that, since we do not work in the winter.
Do I need to say it again?
It would help.
Okay, Patty Melville, Melville.
Thank you.
So one last thing I'm curious about, after hearing all these people, is this a done deal? like, is this gonna happen no matter what we say? Like, so there are like 6 or 7 or 8 of us in here who have said we really think it needs some paint and a new light and street crossings, but I don't, like, what role does our selectmen have in saying people in town either want it or don't want it, or once the state decides you wanna put in a road, is that what's gonna happen? That's just what I wanna know.
So I guess I'll answer that. Everything will be considered. There is not an absolute requirement that this project go forward. We could just cancel the project. Switching to a new type of project such as new signals, which by the way wouldn't be less expensive, so if you're worried about money, that's not an option. But that would be more difficult, but if the goal is to just cancel the project, we could certainly take that back and consider that.
You're saying that replacing this project, the $2 million project, is gonna be the same amount of money as putting up new traffic lights? Is that what you just said?
That is what I just said.
How does that breakdown go?
Cost of the construction.
You know, the traffic signal will need to be replaced, but I believe the pavement structure out there is, you know, the whole road's gonna need.
If the road has to be repaved, that's no matter what. And if you get the third lane for the left turn onto Maple Street, that's an addition. You're gonna have to maybe take a little property right at where it becomes a third lane. But it's hard to believe a few lights as opposed to digging up that whole area. The repaving is just a paving over, because like I said, I did it for 40 years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I think that job would be a full depth reconstruction job. We wouldn't probably just pave that, based on my limited knowledge. Maybe our consultants have a little more to add to that, but we've got pavement distress out there, bad sidewalks, handicap ramps. It's not, we couldn't just go through there with a milling machine and put up a new traffic signal and spend a couple $100,000 to say goodbye. I think, as Mark's saying, you know, a roundabout or a traffic signal replacement are in all likelihood gonna be pretty close to each other, and we may even have an estimate. I don't, they looked at the option of a new traffic signal. I just don't know if they have an estimate for that.
Yeah, early on, I don't know the exact number, but you're correct. I mean, this design has less pavement than is out there. You know, I'm talking about the number of lanes that you wanna maintain, so pavement makes up a significant portion of the cost of the project.
Understandable.
All of the sidewalks still need to be replaced. So
Right.
so those are the big ticket items, and I don't think anything would happen here unless it was built to a standard that was gonna last for the next 20 years.
And how could
So I don't
it,
think they would just paint it. I think they wanna fix the accessibility issues with new sidewalks, repave the road so that it's gonna last another 20 years. New signals, you talked about maybe adding another turn signal, well now we need a new mast arm because it's gonna have to be longer for putting more signal heads on it. So there is cost, just to let everybody know that it's not, you know.
it's not just like
paint.
putting up
It's not
two
just
light
paint.
poles, and I understand that. But I also, like I said, I've dealt with this for a long time, and I know there's a lot of stuff that's done by the state that is a little on the iffy side if you wanna tear it all down. That's why I'm asking, and to design something like that without pedestrian lights, how did it get off the design table without the safety for the pedestrians?
There are rapid flashing beacons there, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not a pedestrian light.
That's the standard for safety around a crosswalk for ADA concerns and pedestrians, especially single lane.
So Steve,
Would you identify yourself?
Charlie Plungis, Piers and Peter, Lungis.
Thank you.
So the standard is good if we have somebody gets hit and gets killed like we've had here?
What do you mean?
You have flashing lights, someone walks through the crosswalk, gets hit. That's okay? You met the standard?
So I don't understand what you're implying.
I'm implying the flashing lights aren't gonna do it, you need a light to stop traffic.
All right, thank you.
Peter Vallanos, a citizen.
Well, sorry, Peter, would you spell your
Oh,
last name?
sorry, yes, Vallanos.
Thank you.
Probably the toughest one tonight. If you do build a roundabout there, I'm concerned about the pedestrians also. I see 3 places where the pedestrians, well, there are 3 roads that could be crossed. Do you expect to have it signalized for pedestrians?
No, it's the rapid flashing beacons, which are not.
But all the traffic theoretically is continuously moving in every direction.
Right.
Uh,
Right, so they need to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalks.
Without, the flashing lights are for who to see?
To draw awareness.
For the drivers to see.
Yes.
So it's signalized to that extent.
Right, to show
But
it's
it's
a
not
safety
that-
feature, yes.
But the pedestrians don't push a button to say that they're ready to cross.
I don't believe on this design, no.
Well, so for clarification, the rapid flash can be push button activated by pedestrians, and that is a feature that we've been asked to consider for this project and are considering. So yes, we would have a push button sign, it would flash to let vehicles
I would have
know.
expected if you're doing the roundabout, if it's going to be installed, that there'd be some kind of signalization for the pedestrians. But that's got to stop all the lanes, I would think.
Just one lane at a time, that's why this is safer, because you only have to cross one lane, you only have to look in one direction, you only have to cross one lane. If there's no car coming here, and this one car stops, you can go to the center. And
To the
then-
center.
And then you have one lane to look at.
Then you have the northbound lane
But
coming
one
on the
lane at
same
a time,
street.
so that you're not looking at multiple lanes of traffic. You're not looking at people taking right turns on red, so you've got, that's the safety feature of this, it's one short, narrower lane that you're crossing, so.
And is there another button for the pedestrian to push when he's on at the island?
Yep.
Oh, I'm not usually a pedestrian.
My name is hold on just a moment, please. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, sir.
My name is Bobby Houston, citizen, Houston.
Thank you.
So I want to give you guys a heads up that you have a messaging hurdle here to overcome, because Main Street, the reconstruction of Main Street in Great Barrington, the end result is highly unpopular, and it was done by you, DOT. So you have to do a good job of coming to us and explaining to us how this is safer, how traffic moves more smoothly, how this is traffic calming, how you can handle the loads. None of these people believe you. So for instance, when you say quietly that there are rapid flashing beacons, you need to teach us what that is, how that works. Because this is a big paradigm shift. And again, this is the only roundabout for 60 miles. I'm a fan of this project. I like roundabouts. I'm a big fan of traffic calming in all its means. But I would ask you to consider textured paving so that under your tires you know you're entering a slow and careful section of the highway. And I would ask you to consider traffic tables so that the car feels when it's on the crosswalk. You literally feel in your vehicle, I am now on the crosswalk. We should have had traffic tables on Main Street. We didn't get them. And the town, to their credit, went out and bucked you guys and painted red and white zebra crossings because you didn't do it. Zebra crossings are safety. We didn't get them on Main Street. So you guys have a big job to come to this town and explain to us how you're not gonna fuck it up like you did Main Street. Be bold. I'm a fan of the project. I hope it gets better.
Can I just make a comment on that as well. So we have also, our crosswalk standards have changed since the Main Street project. We have a commitment to considering textured crosswalks with markings of sorts, whether that's a brick inlay or some other feature. So there is the anticipation that these crosswalks would be much more visible than what was included in the Main Street project.
Good. Good.
Bruce Moore, citizen, MOORE. You opened this discussion by asking this group of people here how we learned about the meeting. Would you tell us again where the notifications were and how many of those are in Berkshire County or Western Massachusetts, please?
I'm not 100% sure where some of these may be located. We do have a list,
Okay.
which I believe the Recorder and the Republican were on, and then I asked for
I'm
any.
sorry, say those again?
The Recorder and the Republican?
Recorder,
That's just the name of the publication.
do you know where that's based?
No, I don't.
Greenfield.
Greenfield.
And so I
And the
also asked for
Republican
any
is-
recommended ones, and they suggested the Hampshire Gazette, so I did that one as well.
And the Hampshire Gazette's located where?
Northampton.
Northampton, okay. So that's 60 miles away. The Recorder is in Greenfield. Where's the Republican?
Springfield.
Springfield. So nothing in Berkshire County.
Well,
It was in the Berkshire Edge.
Okay, so then I imagine that was I did not edit that from the previous one last week. So I can't tell you which ones they were because I don't have them on hand.
Okay.
However, I
would
know there were
check.
at least two, so I can follow up with that if that's a concern.
It is
So I
a
apologize for
concern
that.
that this group of people who represent a small part of our community have very little recourse and very little access to information about this issue by dint of the way it was advertised and notified. And I think that's something that needs to be improved, and I think that goes to a number of the comments made here with respect to getting public input in a productive way in terms of getting accurate information on this project. I'd like to ask another couple of things. In the traffic study, I believe the record that I saw was about a 20 to 31 minute wait at that light, I believe is what it said. Is that a blended wait rate? And does that account for the fact that in 2 lanes of traffic, there's no wait? So coming down Main Street, turning right onto Maple Avenue, currently, there is no wait. Coming down Maple Avenue and turning right onto Route 7, going south, there is no wait. So we have 2 lanes of traffic, which happen to be the sole method of getting from Massachusetts to New York, and from coming in from New York to go down 7 toward our main shopping plaza. Currently, there are no waits on those. So I'd like to know if those 20 to 30-second waits are based on blended rates. Does that account for that or not? The other thing I'd like to ask is the length of line and queuing that was indicated ranged from about 250 to 329 feet. So if I allow 20 to 25 foot per car, that's telling me that a typical queue existing is between 10 and 15 vehicles. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I've never seen 10 or 15 vehicles stacked up at those lights.
Behind one of those big trucks.
And I think, and I go actually to Mrs. Plunge's comment also, these are the 2 primary routes into this town from Connecticut and from New York State. And we're talking about throttling down 2 lanes of traffic into 1 in every direction. I think that really needs to be rethought. I gotta say, I don't believe your traffic studies.
Just to answer your question, the numbers are based on projected traffic growth over the next 10 years and at the peak hour. So we count the traffic over a 48-hour period. We figure out when traffic is heaviest and traffic design. Those are worst case. That's that 95th percentile, which is the worst case traffic that can happen. Usually it's in the AM or the PM peak, depending on what direction you're looking in. So that's what that's based on. It's not based on what you'll see over the course of the normal day, and that's standard for how intersections are designed for that that worst case.
Thank you.
So real quick before you start, sorry, but just to address the publications, I have the Berkshire Eagle and the Berkshire Record were the two that this design public hearing was advertised in.
Thank you.
Michael Alper, ALPER, a citizen. Is there any planned illumination for this, for nighttime, making it easier to see? It'll become a new pattern, a different pattern. We have a lot of elderly drivers and people unfamiliar. Just curious if that was considered in this at all.
There's existing lights, right?
Yes.
So the existing street lights will be retained. Are we relocating? Relocating one light pole? Okay. So there's existing lighting out there. I believe one of the poles has to be relocated as part of the project, so that light will be put in a more optimal location, but the existing lights are on the utility poles out there. So there's no, to answer your question, there's no new specific street lighting as part of the project, just the existing lighting.
Thomas McClellan. With regards to the cost of the project, the actual construction of the project is one part of it. There's also the easement and whether those get done. So I'd just like to say that if there was an improvement made in the existing situation there, it would not include the purchase of easements for the project.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Bellow, Berkshire Eagle. Have you already identified who you would have to purchase, the easement land from, and can you tell us which properties those are?
Yeah.
Sure, so we have, the design shown today, 3 fee takings. One of them being on the Great Barrington Police Department property. One of them being on the Karen Cascadin LLC property. And then one of them being on the Educational Consultants property, which is directly north of the police station.
Oh my goodness. Kathy Plunges. Directly north of the police station is what we know as the Searles Castle. Have you ever looked at that? Right after that, that is a huge drop, 30, 50 feet. You're gonna take that and fill that in? Oh dear, leave this project leave the road the way it is. You're gonna take some land in order to move the sidewalk further to the right. That is a huge drop off that you are going to have to fill in. You're making a mountain out of a molehill here. I also want to say, someone else had brought it up early and it was brought up again. Great Barrington has an aging population. I don't like these roundabouts when I have to go through them on Route 9 going up to Saratoga Springs. I hate them. We have elderly people here that are going to try and stop and go. Do I go in? Don't I go in? People are going to be honking at them to hurry up and get into that circle. And it's going to be slowing the traffic down. Our population is not expanding. We're getting older. This is not going to work for the elderly people in our town and the tourists that come here that are unaware of this. And I know Jersey has a lot of roundabouts. I'm down there and I'm going around them and I hate them. The ones they put on Route 9 in New York State, into Saratoga Springs. They're horrible, they're narrow, trucks can't navigate them. You really need to rethink this. And now you tell me you're gonna take some Searles Castle property and fill in part of that drop-off.
Excuse me, Ms. Blunt, just before you leave, can you spell Searles?
Searles.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, we know it as Searles Castle in
Thank
the
you.
John Dewey Academy.
Okay.
Holly Hamer, citizen, HAMER. Have you been in touch with the Historical Society about that particular piece of property that Kathy was talking about? Because as I recall this, the cement or the wall there is what prevented the town from taking that property to build the firehouse because of its historical significance. Did I see somewhere in your presentation that you had been in touch with
You did.
historical
We can
people?
double check, we'll follow up on that. Thanks for the comment. And maybe they didn't understand what the extent of the taking was, but we
Does
can
it-
certainly go over that.
Does it impact the wall that's there? Do you know? It has, doesn't the wall,
No, I don't think we are impacting the wall. No, we are not impacting.
it doesn't go all the way to the police?
No, it's, and for the taking, it's a very small area where the sidewalk's just a little over the
Right.
property line. We're not doing any significant earthwork or grading or fill or anything. It's just where that wide sidewalk for the bicyclists to get around. It just encroaches
Okay.
over the property line, so it's a very small land
Right.
taking.
But we'll
Which
confirm
brings
that.
me
But we
to
will confirm
another
that.
question. Are there any town property, any town trees or trees that are on town property that will be impacted by this? Or cut down, I should say?
There are trees, we're just trying to remember whether that's,
So
I think some
there's
might be
part
within
of-
the state, I know there's some within near Maple Ave, which is state highway, right? But
We can confirm that.
So I would recommend that you get in touch with the tree warden to determine that, because if the town has a very strict policy about removals. Okay.
If I could, there are a couple of other review sections who have already commented on this project, one being MassDOT's historic review section that has already contacted us and made it very clear that this is a historic district. Any tree removal will require replacement at least a 2-to-1 ratio. Our landscape section is also very aware of this project, very aware of the community's concern over trees and landscaping, and we anticipate working with local landscape architects on this project as we advance.
Are there any other comments?
One more.
Sure.
Just like because the Thomas McClellan,
Thank you.
because of the sort of limited turnout here tonight, and because of the kind of loose consensus that I've heard, I think that it would be reasonable to ask that this project be reconsidered. I do not hear very much enthusiasm at all for this project. And if it benefits our community in a meaningful way with real safety where there's no asterisks or questions, then that's one thing. But if it's a push-ahead thing where studies have been done by people not in this community, and it's by the numbers that don't necessarily make sense to us in this community, then I would say that it needs to be rethought and definitely not pushed ahead where you would end up in some sort of real conflict with the community.
Thank you. questions and comments, I'd like to remind you that the last sheet of the handout is a mail-in sheet. If you have any further questions or comments which you would like to submit, please use this sheet for that purpose. You may leave the sheet with me tonight, or you may mail it to the department within 10 days. It will become part of the official record. Before I close this hearing, I'd like to say that we are here as long as you're interested in looking at the plans or diagrams, and we will try to respond to the questions that affect you personally. Thank you very much for attending and providing us with this auditorium. I declare this hearing closed at 8:41 p.m.